Thanks, Brennan. Welcome along to the Planning and Development Committee meeting for the 10th of May 2022. The meeting is open to the public and will also be live streamed. I'd like to thank those of you in the room today with us and acknowledge everyone watching Council's social media channels. I acknowledge the Mayor, Portfolio Leader, Councillor Carl, Councillors, the CEO and the General Manager of Planning and Development, Stuart Summers. I acknowledge the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse these lands we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, Guybil and Jarowair peoples, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the knowledge, rich traditions and bold ambitions of Australia's First Peoples. Item number 2 is the attendance, including apologies, leave of absences. We don't have any apologies, and we note Councillor Melissa Taylor's leave of absence. Item number 3 is the Regional Development Statistics Report, and General Manager Stuart Summers is going to take us through it today. Stuart, thank you.
Good morning, councillors. Just very briefly, just to summarise the stats again for this month, we've actually approved 49 new lots compared to 1 in February. I'm speaking of March, actually. In the month of March, we approved 49 new residential lots. We sealed 15 compared to 87 lots sealed in February. And in terms of houses, 79 houses, detached dwellings, were approved in March compared to 71 dwellings in February. Units, again, very unimpressively, we had 2 in March and 4 in February. Total value, just comparing values, the value of the building industry in the region. February was 41.8 million, and in March it was 55.6 million. I might leave it there. Are there any questions?
If I might just ask my usual question, for which I've given you notice, and when I find it here I'll realise what it is. Yep. It's in relation to the new temporary set of policy applications. If you could just give us some little bit more detail about those 3.
And I do thank you sincerely for giving me notice of the question. It certainly enabled me to chase up some information. There's 3 items there. They're all applications, I hasten to add. There's been no approvals that I know of to this point in time. However, what they're applying for. In the first case, this is FKG have a portion of the brothers' land that they are wishing to construct an industrial activity on, which happens to be a transport depot and warehouse. So it qualifies for that industrial incentive, despite the fact that it's zoned community services at the moment. The zoning is actually irrelevant to that policy. It's the actual use and encouraging that industrial use to proceed. They're looking for a discount amount of that would be a credit to them of $54,000. I said 54 million. That'd be an impressive one, wouldn't it? But basically, the other 2 are the Highfields Pioneering Village and the Cecil Plains Historical Group. They're doing works or have located buildings which would normally generate the payment of an infrastructure charge under Council's policy, but they certainly qualify for 100% discount, and it's a deferral rather than a total discount in their case, just because of the way we've written the policy. So, and the amounts involved in the case of Highfields, it would be $46,000, And in the case of Cecil Plains, it would be $7,000.
Just a follow-up, on that first one, it's 54,000 discount. What would the normal full fee be?
The full levy is $84,000.
Okay. So it's a substantial discount.
Yep.
There. Thank you.
Stuart, just on that, I thought that we had spoken one time about putting into this table because one's under the industrial, one's under the regional, and can we have that included under what incentive?
We'll do it under a separate one.
Thank you.
Yeah. It is a bit confusing. I found it
Yeah,
confusing.
you have to try and think what it is, yeah. Councillor
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Carol
Through
Taylor,
you. To you, Stuart, good morning. The Highfields Pioneered Village, you mentioned they found some buildings. What is it? Are they building something or what?
I think
And
they're
it just
moving
might
it
be nice for councillors to know what both groups are planning, seeing there for community use in the community space.
Look, I really don't have details on that,
Yeah,
Councillor, but I
thank
can
you.
certainly get it
Just
for you.
send that as
Yep.
an email out to us, that would be great. But in the Highfield matter of the Highfields, you said I think you said they found some buildings. Was there something there that wasn't?
Oh, I think they're moving a building on.
Oh, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
yep.
Thank you.
further questions for the General Manager? No? Can I have someone move the report be noted? Thank you. Councillor McMahon, the Mayor, all those in favour? It's carried. Can I have someone move that we adjourn? Councillor McMahon, Councillor Carol Taylor, all those in favour?
All good there, Brendan? So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Water and Waste Committee meeting for May 2022. This meeting is open to the public and will also be live streamed. I'd like to acknowledge all my council colleagues, the Mayor, Portfolio Leader, Councillor Summerfield, CEO, General Manager of Water and Waste. I acknowledge the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse these lands we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, Guyabal and Jarrawa peoples, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We move to item number 2, attendance including apologies, leave of absence and declarations of conflict. We've got a leave of absence that's previously been granted to Councillor Melissa Taylor. No declarations known or wanting to be flagged at this time. So that being the case, we'll move on to item number 3, amendments to the 2022-23 Register of Fees and Charges for Waste Services. We've got David O'Shea at the microphone, and we'll go over to you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Councillor. Good morning, councillors. This is a fairly simple report. It is a requirement by legislative direction by the state government that the waste levy has been reset. We originally expected a $5 increase in the annual report, but they have modified it to start to increase the amount of the waste levy per year with a reduction of the rebate that council will be receiving in the future. As a result, we've had to review the disposal fees and charges for our waste facilities, and this report is seeking the endorsement of the increase as per the attached schedule.
Thanks very much for that. Councillors, I've got Councillor Summerfield.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, David. I'd like to see a media release go out on this to ensure that the community understands that this is a state government levy increase, not a council increase. If we could have that clarity provided in a media release, please.
Brendan's listening in on all of this and getting some nods. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to endorse those comments by Councillor Nancy Summerfield. I think that there's been very little noise, communication from anywhere on this, and to suddenly come up with a rise like this, the community thinks that everything we charge is ours, and this is because of a charge that's been levied on us by the state government. So I would like to see it put out, not in journalist speak, but in absolutely common language that everyone can understand, and we need to put it everywhere. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Antonio. We seem to have agreement. Any questions for David, councillors? Yeah, Councillor McDonald.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a question. David, pardon me, somewhere in the report it talks about how this is over a period of time, a snapshot of time that we determine how much landfill that we may have. Given that the last quarter of the operational plan, we've diverted a greater amount than our target. I think the target was 30%. We've diverted some 42% off landfill. Does that come into play at all with any of these assumptions around how much we would be paying to the state government?
It potentially can. Sometimes the percentage per month of recyclables depends on what product is removed from site. So if we remove a lot of concrete, that'll peak in 1 month compared to another month. Same with scrap metal, because they're not constantly moved out at the same time and same phase. Also the green waste, if it's bulked up and we get a good turnout of removal. So some months it can be a higher percentage. Particularly at the moment, we've got that much green waste. We have a lot of excess, so that will peak. If we can maintain that status quo, then that again reduces, or potentially can reduce what goes to landfill. And that's why we've got to look at all those opportunities of what we can do to improve that, because with growth of our development, that's still more waste coming in. So while we can divert as much as we can, it will still be waste produced. So we've got to find ways of better handling that and potentially opportunities coming forward.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to David, would the spike in what we've put into landfill may well have reflected the event we had here in February with the hailstorm and whatever? There was a tremendous amount of spoil and from the shops and whatever around here that perhaps may have spiked that, I guess. And of course, with the green, we've got a lot of rain, so we've got a lot of green grass, but I'm just wondering if there was a tremendous amount of damaged goods that were taken out.
In our particular area, I don't believe there was a large quantity that made any change to our operations.
Yeah, no,
Councillor
thanks.
Shine.
Thanks, Chair. Just two things. One is I note the levy is, in this instance anyway, relates to commercial as opposed to domestic waste. That's the case.
The levy we pay is on all waste, including domestic waste. What we get is a rebate from the government for the domestic quantity. And it is the proposal under the legislation that will reduce over a number of years. So at the moment, they give us 105% repayment, allowing for some growth. And that'll progressively go from in the year 23-24 year, financial year, it'll drop to 95% and then progressively down.
Right. But for the time being, can we reassure ratepayers that when they go to the dump, for example, they won't be charged in the usual way? They won't be charged.
Yeah, there's no changes to the domestic charges at this time.
No doubt that'll be mentioned in the press release as well. And I'm just wondering if you could give us some background to why there is a levy in the first place. What's the policy objective of the government in bringing in the levy?
again, not being able to read the document in front of me, but generally it is to encourage that diversion away from landfilling.
Right, okay. Whether General Manager might want to expand on
I'm
that.
happy
I
to.
think Councillor Summerfield.
Thank you. If that's all right with you, Damien. I know your focus is water. The waste levy was introduced, and it's in every state pretty well now, I think. Queensland was one of the later ones to introduce it, but the whole reason is to divert the waste from landfill to ensure that there's more recycling and more reuse of our waste, and to make people more focused on recycling it rather than just putting it in the bin saying it'll go away. The thing is we are on a price plan with this, so it wasn't a surprise that this happened. So the reason for my request for the media release was that we explain that to our communities so that they understand the process. Where we receive some funding from the state government waste levy back into our waste business, but it is reducing, and there is a price path for that too, to reduce right down. So there is concern moving forward. The state government, when they introduced it, promised that they would reinvest 70% of the money raised back into the waste industry, not into just local government, but into waste businesses. We don't have any oversight over whether that actually occurs or not. And in other states, it's less than the 70%, but that's how it operates in Queensland.
Damien, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Councillors, that's all correct that Councillor Summerfield has said, but the economics of policies is to change a behaviour by imposing a cost, and then the revenues that are derived from that levy, as Councillor Summerfield has said, is to increase the industry and to change the business cases for things like processing of marginal materials. So that is the underlying policy objective, is to make things now more commercially viable to divert from a waste stream rather than the cheapest form, which is to put to landfill, which is, in a circular economy, as Bill often says, is not the most optimal use of those resources.
There is that step-down conversation, though, that needs to be had because we know where this is headed, so the financial implications of that. Councillor O'Hara-Sullivan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Maybe it's not a question for you, Dave, I'm not sure, but how much investigation are we doing of, so the products that we divert from landfill, what's the sort of investment in the recycling or the reuse of all of that? Where does that go to? I'm not sure that I really understand that.
Councillor O'Hara-Sullivan, that's a lovely question. I would like very much to bring either a report back to council so that we can do it in an open session, or maybe an information session where we can present all that material to you. We do follow those waste streams, and we're guaranteed that our yellow bin, we're paying the cost for that. Are guaranteed that our yellow bin is all being recycled here in Toowoomba. For some councils, that's not the case, where they have not chosen to make arrangements for their yellow bins. Some yellow bins in Queensland go to landfill. Ours is definitely all recycled.
I'll be very keen to, be
Have
brought up to date
information.
with that, yeah.
An information session or a report to council, whichever.
In the interest of transparency, maybe a report.
Yep, a report to council. Councillor Carl.
Yeah, comment if I may, Madam Chair. I think the bigger picture for us to focus on here is the fact that it's not just about enabling councils or councils pursuing this path, but it's already been mentioned by Damien and Councillor Nancy, enablement of the private sector to reinvest into, quote, marginal products that can get a leg up with that funding or that levy. At the end of the day, we're all generators of waste. Doesn't matter what you do, what sector you're in, we're all generators of waste. So it's an important responsibility in a circular economy to actually look at how we do that. The only thing that I would say is through our representative body, LGAQ, that we ensure that we have some input into the oversight, or at least have a voice at the table about how we collectively, doesn't matter what sector we're in, private, local government, state government, doesn't matter, how we studiously leave an environment for our children and our children's children around having a say at the table around the importance of how we deal with our waste. And as Damien, I believe, correctly stated, the levy is a trigger for that. So let's make sure we have a voice at our representative level, and maybe it's a topic that, and I know the LGAQ are already heavily involved, but in a they're not.
Not this term, Councillor Bill. We haven't had any waste meetings at all this term yet.
Wow.
But the Council of Mayors definitely is.
Well, then maybe my comments are, maybe we need to pursue that as a representative body of LGAQ, how we progress that discussion. So I think that's important. And it's not just about our region, it's about how we fit in part of the puzzle. Long comment, Madam Chair, but an important one, and not just focus on a diminishing or a cost to council indirectly. The bigger cost is how do we deal with our waste, and it's bigger than this council.
Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow on from Councillor Carl's comment, there is a advisory committee that has been formed by LGAQ, is headed up by one of the policy executive team. I'm not sure which one it is, but they are doing some work in that space. I know they've had a meeting, but yeah.
Councillor Summerfield?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually on that committee and they haven't had a meeting yet.
Is this one that we organise for the Australian Local Government Association? I remember in the past we've had an email sent around for motions to be considered. Is this something that we'd consider ahead of the LGA meeting, which I think is in June or July?
Madam Chair, I think it's too late for there was a call for motions. I'm sure that's closed. So perhaps we could think about it for the state.
Local government, yeah. LGAQ, yeah. Councillor Summerfield, did you have your hand up again? No. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, councillors. So the recommendation before us is that council adopt the amendments to the Register of Fees and Charges as shown on attachment 1 with effect from the 1st of July 2022. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Summerfield. Councillor O'Hara-Sullivan as a seconder. All those in favour? That's carried. Thanks very much, David.
Thank you.
Thanks, Damien. We'll close the meeting 9:26 a.m. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Infrastructure Committee meeting at Toowoomba Regional Council. The meeting is open to the public and will be live streamed. I'd like to acknowledge everyone here in the room today and acknowledge everyone who's watching on Council's social media channels. We actually have no agenda items for May, so can I have a mover and a seconder that the meeting be adjourned? Move the Mayor, seconded Councillor McDonald. Those in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much.
So we resume the planning and development meeting, and I'll need someone to move that we go into a confidential session. Councillor Carol Taylor, Councillor McMahon, all those in favour? All right, so item number 5, councillors, is the Development Services Planning and Environment Court Appeals and Compensation Claims for April 2022. Can I have someone move the acceptance of that report? Councillor Carl, Councillor McDonald, all those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. That's the end of the meeting. Now, Stuart, are